All right, thank you for joining. As I said, we are in the coldest bit, so at any point if you get up and want to move about, please do. But we'll try and create this as energetic as we can. I'm going to go for around 20 minutes and can share some of our report that we released a couple of weeks ago. So if you haven't read it, it's fine. We'll get a link at the end. So if you want to see the report, or just come and grab me and I'll get a copy sent to you. So we're going to spend a bit of the time to go over, some of the key findings that we found around the digital transformation and crisis. It's a bit clickbaity, but some of the things we found would indicate that there is some crisis going on within digital transformation programs. And I'm then going to kind of go over a little bit of some of the ideas and tips, how you can kind of solve some of these issues. And then we'll get into a quick Q&A. So go for about 20 minutes and then we'll get into a Q&A. No questions off the agenda, so anything you want to ask, just ask. And then, as I said, my contact details will be up after it, so if you want to follow up at any point, please feel free. So, as I said, we've had the Digital Transformation and Crisis report that we released, a couple of weeks ago. So a little bit about me. As I said, I usually do these things in America where I wear a kilt. I thought wearing a kilt today, I just look weird, especially in here, right? It wouldn't be a good look. My background, I spent 12 years with a large digital transformation consultancy called Tech Systems. I worked mainly on financial services, digital transformation, some good, some bad. After 12 years in that space, I suffered pretty bad burnout, as a lot of people that have worked in digital transformation have, and that was one of the key findings that we got. And I kind of decided to try and change like some of the key things I was doing, like not maybe so much change everything I was doing with my life, but start to kind of think about what do I want to do differently. And I knew that I needed to do something differently for the good of my physical and mental health. I took some time out. I done some work with the data lab, just voluntary work to help bring more data scientists and data analysts into the Scottish workforce, which was great. Working with Gillian Docherty and that team, and that was a great experience. I then started doing some work with Gartner as a CIO advisor. Again, that was mainly around digital transformation. It was all about how do we deliver X, how do we deal with this technology, and how do we get the right people. And that's kind of what led to me co-founding in 2021 Gigged.AI, which is an AI-powered digital talent platform that helps alleviate the skill shortage. As I said, I'm not here to sell that, I'm here to kind of give an overview. I'm kind of going to put my Gartner hat on for about half of this session, so I'll go back a few years and try and pretend I'm a Gartner analyst again. So in terms of the report, we didn't do the report ourselves. We got a company called Sapio, who are one of the leading research firms in the UK, and we talked to 255 leaders, mainly within digital transformation. And again, half of them were in financial services, a lot of them were in Scotland, so I think 30% were in Scotland. And I really just wanted to shine a light on what was going on within some of the digital transformation programs now, not what was happening 2-3 years ago, but what was happening now. And all the research was carried out in August, so it's pretty hot off the press. So what we realised was that digital transformation, obviously as everybody in this room in this conference knows, is everywhere. But there is too much work to do. I think in the opening session, obviously all about, is generative AI the answer? No, it's not the answer. It's part of the cure, but it's not the answer. And but we need more people in most programs, and that was a key theme that came through. The talent shortage has got worse. So we talk about the talent shortage. For a long time, that was just another buzzword. It was just like, it was something for the governments to write about in the reports. But it's true, right? Over half said it's got worse. Not a politician, but part of the reason it's got worse, Brexit had an impact. It took 330,000 people out of the workforce that are just not there anymore. They're back working in other places. They went to the US, but they're not working in the UK anymore. So that's 330,000 people in tech out of the workforce. There's obviously much more demand for digital transformation than ever before. COVID has accelerated things massively, and every CEO sitting in a plane reading at one of the pamphlets, it's all sponsored by the big, Cognizant, Deloitte. They're all sponsoring everything. Why are they sponsoring that? Because digital transformation is at the CEO level like never before, and that's meaning that there's more and more work getting pushed down to the tech teams to deliver new products that create more revenue, that cut costs. It's everywhere, right? And it is having an impact. So if we look at current state, just under half of programs are delayed. I'll do a quick straw poll, and we won't ask anybody what projects, but put up your hand if you've worked in a digital transformation program of any sort that has not delivered on time. There's a few people lying, right? Every single one I worked on never delivered on time, not one. And we were running it. But again, a third say that there is not enough people to do the work, and that's the key theme. I'm not going to really go into that too much in this presentation, but that is leading to another pandemic, which is all about burnout and the impact that burnout is having. And it might seem, oh, we don't have enough budget. I think I seen that in the session earlier. Most digital transformation programs don't have enough budget to have the right people that they need to do the work. Well, that is going to have an impact on the program director, the program manager, the project manager, the UX designer. The people working in those programs are going to be impacted by that. Again, not a particularly crazy stat, but 90%, majority of people we surveyed are experiencing a tech skill shortage. What I found that was really, really interesting, if we look at the skills which are being impacted. So software development, shock horror being number one, cybersecurity being number two, and digital marketing being not after that. This is a percentage of the people who responded about where they were feeling the most pain acutely. So we asked them to stack rank the skills. Software development, that's always been an issue, and I think it'll always be an issue. But cybersecurity, going back to the sessions about generative AI, cybersecurity is going to be one of the hottest demand skills because of the rise in generative AI. If you speak to any CISO, they're nervous about generative AI, right? Because where's the data coming from? What data is people putting into it? Are they putting confidential data in? Where's that going? How's it being used? So we're going to see a much bigger rise in cybersecurity. I think the bit here that maybe doesn't tell the whole story is data engineering. I need to change that colour actually. But data engineering being number 5. Call a spade, within the next 12 months, data engineering will be the number one skill being impacted by the skill shortage. There is no doubt on that. As more companies look to implement their own large language models, or they're looking to use different API models, you'd need data engineering resource to make that work. And you're going to need more cybersecurity. In terms of our part of our platform, before March, our demand very much mirrored this. Software development was number 1, cybersecurity was number 2, and data engineering was number 3. Since March, the 4 out of the 5 top skills requested from customers on our platform are data. Data engineering, Python, data analysis, it's all data. We could become just a data hiring platform and still do as much business as ever. Don't think we'll do that, but we could. And that is going to be the main demand, and it's like, how do we get ahead of that curve? We kind of wrote in a report a lot about business being redefined and how do we redefine businesses. I'll be honest, going through the report, there wasn't a lot of massive out there thinking going on. It was all about, well, we've got a training program, yeah, we've kind of got an upskilling program. There was just a little bit of everything, right? But there wasn't a lot of particularly bold thinking. That's mainly because people are under a lot of pressure, and it's hard to think boldly when you're under a lot of pressure. But interestingly, 52% said that they're looking to implement generative AI to alleviate the skill shortage. I think generative AI, we're a big user of generative AI. We've just launched a big partnership with OpenAI. We believe in it, but it's not going to replace everybody's jobs. It can augment, absolutely, but it's not going to be the answer to the tech skill shortage, in my humble opinion. It can absolutely help, but it is not the answer. Only a quarter are actually looking at external resource in different talent pools, right? We need to get a little bit more bold. Interestingly, in the report, we had people like Mark Logan had some really interesting points on it. We had the head of talent at NASA who gave some very bold thinking, which I'm actually going to touch on in a second. We had the future of work analyst from Deloitte. There are companies out there thinking pretty boldly, and more bold thinking is going to be needed to fix the skill shortage here and now. You read, I think there was a report this morning about, we need more computer science teachers, we need more kids getting into computer science, data engineering. We do, but that isn't going to solve the problems that everybody's having right now, right? We've got more digital projects than ever before, less people, more pressure, more burnout, right? So again, as much as I'm a big believer of improving at a grassroots level, that doesn't help anybody in this room here and now, right? So this is when I put my my Gartner hat on. So Gartner come out with hype cycles, they come out with reports all the time. A lot of them are very good, but some can be kind of left because they feel a little bit clickbaity, or they can feel a little bit of a buzzword. So every year, usually around November, they release their future work trends. So in November last year, they released their future work trends, and it had all the main things: the kind of remote versus hybrid, diversity, equity, and inclusion being a key one. Well-being, mental health being a key one, all really important topics. But interestingly, the number one topic that they had was quiet hiring. And quiet hiring was dismissed by a lot of people as just because it came just after quiet quitting. Everybody remember that buzzword? That was annoying. But quiet quitting went everywhere. But quiet hiring actually, there's actually some interesting elements to it. So, I've actually worked with Emily. She's a very, very clever person, worked across lots of different future of work transformations, but it's about how do you add new skills right now without necessarily adding new full-time headcount? And the answer is not just hiring contractors, right? There are different things that different companies are doing in this space right now. So if we look at quiet hiring as a topic, so there's three key components to quiet hiring: internal mobility, upskilling and reskilling, and contingent hiring. Pretty big topics. Some organisations are doing little bits, but interestingly, only 5% of organisations look at internal mobility. It's not a lot. Only 15% actually have some sort of properly upskilling or reskilling program, especially reskilling. Like reskilling is the kind of ace in the hole here, which was obviously been done very well in Scotland by CodeClan, now taken over by Codebase, but that's obviously something that we've done pretty well in Scotland, and we need to do more. Obviously, what happened with CodeClan obviously wasn't a great advert for Scotland, but in terms of the quality of the teaching and the quality of the programme was very, very high. A lot of developers that we have in our team came from CodeClan, they're brilliant. We need to try and expand these sort of programmes. And I said contingent hiring is often looked at, hey, I just need a contractor. But actually there's much more to it than that. So internal mobility, I actually asked ChatGPT, as everybody does in a presentation, so thought I'd just follow that trend and ask what it is. Internal mobility was in the Gartner hype cycle for emerging technology and not HR technology, which actually is a really, really important moment. So if you think about some of the big technologies mentioned here, NFTs, that maybe didn't do too well, that's probably here now. But if we look at internal talent marketplaces, that is something that they seen was an innovation trigger. And I think companies can get ahead of the game if they look at implementing internal mobility programs within their digital transformations, not waiting for HR to do it. And I think that for me is a really, really important topic. It's something that we're doing a lot of work with companies at the moment, large IT companies, large energy firms. If you can focus on getting maybe 300 to 400 of your teams onto an internal mobility program, you will actually be able to save money. You'll be able to retain more staff. It just makes a lot of sense, and it's not as tricky to implement as it sounds. It can be done pretty cheaply and pretty quickly, if done right. But internal mobility is something that you're going to see a lot of. There's only 7 companies in the world doing it properly at the moment. There'll be about 30 by the end of the year. It's going to explode. And if there was a way to bet on that, I would, because I really think this space is going to grow massively. Upskilling and reskilling, as I said, I touched on this before, but often led left to HR, I find, to kind of put an upskilling or reskilling program. It can be on an intranet, it can be in a procedure program. Yes, we have an upskilling program. But actually, when owned by the tech teams and the digital teams, it can actually be really, really effective. So I give a real world example. One of the best uses of this is BT. So BT have a massive issue around cybersecurity. Most large organisations do, but they're no different. What they decided to do, their CISO decided to go, well, how do we hire? They needed like 300 cybersecurity analysts, paying anywhere between 40 to 60,000 pounds a year. They could not find them, could not get them. There's no way they could get them. So what they decided to do is create a program with a company called Caps Lock, really, really good training program, and they took a batch of about 300 a year, which are store managers, different roles. The guy who used to run the Livingston EE store, selling you your mobile phone, is now a cybersecurity analyst at BT. True story. And that was because it was led by what skills do we have that could be retrained. They've got the soft skills, but what can we do to give them the hard skills to fill that skill gap? And now BT have a ready-made, it costs a little bit of money to do, it takes a bit of effort, it needs to have executive buy-in, but if done properly, upskilling and reskilling is a great thing to look at. Something Sky have done really well. If you look at Sky's call centre in Livingston, I don't know why Livingston seems to be the hotbed for talent, but they use the same approach, right? So within their service desk teams, they pull a lot of people from, even their CRM and their database teams, they pull a lot of people. They realise that the people working in the call centre, when they looked at the data, like 60% of them they were at university, working part-time, but they were at university doing some sort of computer science or some sort of computing degree. But then they were getting a job elsewhere, working in the call centre and then going to work somewhere else when they've got skill gaps. So they decided they could tap into that resource. And again, it's just being able to look at those skills. Having an internal mobility program can actually help identify the skill sets as well up front, because you can actually see where your skill gaps are, which is another big problem. But internal mobility can actually help do reskilling properly. And then contingent hiring, I'm looking for time. Contingent hiring, as I said, looking to hire more contractors. That's tricky to do in the UK these days, just to go and hire direct contractors. It used to be when I was working in these programs back in 2008, you'd go and hire hundreds of contractors on your program. You'd have the budget to do it because it would be ring fenced through the capex. But now, due to IR35, it's tricky, right? It's tricky just to go and hire a direct contractor. It needs to be done. You need to kind of do it via a statement of work. You need to do it via an outcome-based model and actually try and look at different ways. As I said, looking at outsourcing deliverables, we're seeing more of that. Obviously, a lot of the sponsors here today are consulting firms. Consulting firms are having a great time at the moment because you've got hiring freezes on, which means you don't have the people can outsource some of it to consultancies. And as I said, I'm biased here because I founded an open talent and an internal talent marketplace, but more companies in the UK need to look at open talent marketplaces as a way to get talent in the short term. If you look at Fortune 500 companies, 80% of them use open talent marketplaces for short, sharp skill gaps, whether that be a data analyst to work on a project, whether that be a UX, whether that be a copywriter, just thinking a different way to get short, sharp skill gaps done. Instead of always thinking, well, do I need a contractor? Do I need to outsource it to a consultancy, which is going to cost me $2,000 a day? Maybe not. Maybe there's another solution to that. And that's what open talent marketplaces do. They are an and, not an or. It can work alongside the contract PSL. It can work alongside the consulting firms. It's another way to look at getting the right talent. But only 20% of FTSE 100 firms are using open talent marketplaces. There's a huge opportunity for them. That's something that we're trying to fix, but it does take time. Use a quick case study. So NASA, who had part of the report, so Steve Radar, that's his real name, right? He works at NASA and he's called Radar. Now Steve is the head of talent across NASA, been there a long time. He created the Open Talent Centre of Excellence. And he created the internal talent marketplace. NASA actually have a tiny tech team. It's really not big. It's actually just over 100 people in terms of tech. You think it'd be thousands, right? They don't. It's a very small team. First of all, they created an internal talent marketplace 2018. So one of the first companies to do it. And they looked at, is there different people within the organization, usually outside tech, we can bring into these programs. Steve talks about that in the report. Interestingly though, I talk about the open talent marketplaces, and I show these pictures. So obviously that is a fancy picture of asteroids. What NASA do when they have a digital project, they do not assign it to internal resource anymore. They create what they call a competition, and they go out to the open talent marketplaces and get proposals and decide what one's going to do that. So the data mapping project for asteroid data mapping to see what asteroids are going to hit Earth, done by talent from an open talent platform. The robots that they put up in space, or I forget what rocket it was, again, the software was created by open talent engineers. I wouldn't advocate this one, but the cybersecurity strategy that NASA have, again, created from open talent. I think that one's maybe a bit out there. I don't know whether I'd prescribe to that. But the data analysis, one great example, and the software for the robots, great example. I don't have the resource, but can I create an outcome? Can I put it out to their maybe 4 or 5 firms and see who comes back with the best? The biggest supplier for that was a company called Topcoder. They used to provide them all with robot Topcoder because they thought, well, you know what, this is the future. It's definitely something to look at. So in terms of key recommendations, and I said, if anybody does want to talk to me about this after it, please do drop me a note. But piloting internal mobility at the project level, whether you're a head of PMO, head of program, actually starting a program with looking at what talent that we actually have before you start hiring like mad. It doesn't take long, you can do it in a week, but it can really help save money and help retention. Identify what key skill you would look to reskill. That's what BT done, right? They looked at cybersecurity. They don't do reskilling across everything, right? They pretty much only do it with cybersecurity. That's the way to do it. Pick a skill, pick the pain point, work with HR and people teams to try and create a program. I said they don't need to be massive programs. They don't need to cost millions of pounds. I think it can be as less as £3,000 to £4,000 per course per person for some of them. So it's not like out of the realm of possibility when you think if you're trying to hire externally, a recruitment agency would charge you 25-30% hiring fee on a salary. It actually makes sense, but it does take the opportunity to stop. And as I said, thinking about contingent hiring is a different way and not just leaving it to the talent acquisition teams. Talent acquisition teams often will look at the permanent headcount and they'll look at helping you get permanent people. Contingent usually becomes, well, whose job is it? Is it the PMO? Who is it? Nobody really knows, nobody really wants to take it. But if it's owned at the start with a contingent hiring plan with some different ideas, so if you're a project manager, your project's in the red and you're like, shit, what am I going to do? I need this problem fixed quickly. I need new copy for this MVP before we go out to the board. What do I do? That is where having a different contingent hiring plan for like an open talent platform can make a lot of sense. I'll come back to Q&A in a second. As I said, you can download the report. We'll send it out after. If you do, have any questions or want to, not in this session, you want to have a bigger conversation, please just drop me a note. Again, it's a topic that I'm pretty passionate about. I enjoy talking about it. So if you want to talk to me about it, please do. And then with that, if there is, we've got 6 minutes and we've timed that all right. So I've got 6 minutes if anybody has any questions, or if you want to just stand up and do star jumps, then please do. Got questions? Yeah, sorry, we've got a microphone. It's not for the room, for the recording.
Okay, thanks. Where do you think the dividing line is between a productivity crisis and a skills crisis is? Especially in IT, given that we're supposed to be ahead of the game in sort of automation, reuse, etc.
It's a good question. Yeah, I think a lot of remote work or back in the office, people would really bring that argument into it. I probably wouldn't prescribe to that. I do think I would say it's 80% weighted to the actual skill shortage. If you think about, again, most people in tech, like you mentioned, are using generative AI tools already, right? Most people are still using, whether they're allowed to or not, they're using some sort of tools to help the productivity. Automation is more ingrained in people in tech than it is. So from the programs we're working in, I would say it's very much weighted more towards the skills than it is the productivity. But as I said, that was mainly an opinion, not based on data.
Yeah, I mean, you can take the Twitter example, which is quite extreme, to slash the workforce and the application's still there up and running. I just wonder if you come across many companies taking that approach.
Hiring freezes, yes, right? So I think a lot of companies are taking the hiring freeze element. Not a lot are taking the Elon Musk approach to Twitter of cutting obviously the software development teams and the data teams and the cybersecurity teams like he did. But there are but I think 40% of FTSE 100 firms have a hiring freeze on just now along tech. But if you look at, again, going back to this is a data answer, if you look at the tech layoffs that were said to be the huge issue and it was all over the media, probably the first half of this year, maybe not so much the second half. But if you look at the skills that were actually laid off, it was tech companies, but actually it wasn't tech skills. The number one skill laid off was talent acquisition and HR people, which again is kind of counterintuitive, right? But that's where the over 50% of the layoffs that were made were in TA and HR. So I think that's quite, so I think I don't think we're seeing as much cuts to the size of the IT team, but there's definitely freezes that's stopping it grow. I think that's a big issue as well.
Thanks.
No problem. Yeah. Sorry, I'll just get your mic.
So you mentioned about hiring freezes there, and generally hiring freezes are driven by top line growth is not what's expected, or bottom line margin isn't what's expected. What do you think about using hiring freezes to actually enforce this internal mobility and enforce this reskilling? Do you think organisations will move towards changing the narrative to say, no, we're actually doing a hiring freeze so we can grow our people, or is that something that's already happened anywhere?
Not often. One of the companies is doing a decent job is Aegon, right? So Aegon have been quite an early adopter to internal mobility actually, but I think that's the way it should get done, and it should then be brought in as part of, right, we're doing a hiring freeze, but actually we're implementing internal mobility, because you don't actually need to buy a platform. It does help, but you don't need to do a platform to do internal mobility. You could actually do it pretty manually. Most people have skill data. Unfortunately, most of the skill data is on Workday or is an Excel spreadsheet, and it's not very good skill data. So if you have good skill data, then actually, yes, you could then create that as part of the narrative. And I think that's the way to do the narrative, right? If, hey, we've got this hiring freeze because we've seen some economic headwinds coming. However, we're going to now roll out an internal mobility program and or an upskilling program to try and solve some of the skill shortages we have. So when we come out of this, we can come out of it aggressively. So yeah, I think that would be the way to go. But the answer would be no, not that many. Especially in the UK. Like, I spend a lot of time in the US. The US has got much more. The US is not the answer to everything, right? And but when it comes to internal mobility and open talent, they're streets ahead. Like, absolutely streets ahead of it. There still seems to be a kind of, and this is a generalist, but a bit of an old school mentality. Like 2008, I was working in transformations. It'd be right, we'll hire a permanent headcount, we'll hire a contract PSL, and we'll outsource to one of the big that would be the three things you would do. It still seems to be the answer to everything. So I think thinking outside the box may be a way to go. Good question, thank you.
How you doing? It's more about the startup, as you know. There's a lot of pressure on us to try and get internal headcount up, which seems crazy because you're saying the shortage of staff. And we're kind of using that long-term partnership. So it's not consultancy, it's almost long-term partnership with software houses, so you can kind of flex and expand. But it's not looked upon kindly when you're going for grants and things. So it seems really weird that we've got a shortage and yet we're told to hire staff. Yeah. I mean, how do you see that? I mean, that's...
Yeah, as you know, I've got first-hand experience with that, right? So I think you've got two sides to that argument. As a startup, you've got venture capital. If you're venture capital backed, the venture capital firms historically want you to use all of that for headcount. They are changing. I would say a lot of them are changing. My experience has been we're actually getting told the opposite. Don't hire perm. If you can use your platform, do it. Right? They're very much pushing that. I think the grants is an interesting one. You know, if you look at Scottish Enterprise or Innovate UK and you want to get a grant from them to build your startup, you need to add headcount, because the tick box that they add is the value add to the economy is that. So yeah, that problem's going to exist with grants, but I would say when it comes to venture capital, I think that is changing massively. But yeah, I don't think it's going to change with grants. We had the same thing. We were going to do a grant a couple of weeks ago, but we looked at it, the paperwork and the things we're going to need to agree to would actually put the business in a really unproductive way. So yeah, I still think that's an issue. But we're seeing more and more, you know, more and more startups look at a different approach, and I think we'll see more of that, because you can't hire the parent, like skill shortage is the same if you're a startup. Like if you want to hire what startup can afford an 80 to 100,000 pound data scientist right now? They can't. Like unless you're OpenAI or you're, you know, they pay obviously much more than that. But most startups can't, right? We can't. So it's like we're looking at different areas. We tap into the data lab all the time. We try and use PhD students to help, try and think outside the box. But yeah, I don't think it's going to get better. That'd be good. Perfect. All right, as I said, if there's any other questions, please do just drop me a note, or I'll be around all day if anybody wants to discuss any of these topics. And thank you very much for your time, and thanks for dealing with the cold. Thank you. Thank you, man.